This story comes from Benjamin4463 from r/Tales from the Creeps. A corpse. To this day, I do not know whether to refer to the body as a he or a her. Those features had rotten away long before I had made my acquaintance, and I have not the medical knowledge to make the distinction with what still remained. Hence, I will use they when speaking of my, well, not exactly friend, not any longer, but not a stranger either. They are still out there. That is why I am setting my account to pen and paper, in hopes that those who may encounter them will have some measure of understanding of what they are conversing with. They are more, far more, than what they appear. I spent every evening in the last 10 years in their company. Perhaps you may think that it was against my will. This was not the case. They are enchanting, and they will only stay in your company as long as you allow them. They are quite respectful in that sense, not so much in others. I think they are attracted to lonely people. Perhaps they are lonely too. I do not know. There is so much I do not know about them. What I can tell you is that I was quite lonely when they found me. The first hint of their arrival was a low, pulsing instinct of panic. It felt as though I was being studied. That lasted a few weeks. It felt especially strong whenever I walked through the woods alone, as I often did in those days. I missed those walks. The woods completely engulfed the humble cabin in which I lived. I had so many sleepless nights in that cabin, and feeling, now knowing, that I was not alone. One day, as I walked through the clearing a little past sunset, I looked behind me. There at the edge of the tree line, I saw a shape following me. They were pretty far away, so I did not have a good look at what I was staring at. But knowing what I do now, they told me years later, it would have been a floating, rotting nervous system. Brainstem swaying this way and that. A gelatinous fluid leaking, gray matter, blob bobbing up and down. The hundreds of thousands of nerve endings swirling like frills on a dress. But like I said, I did not get a good look back then. I thought it was perhaps a curious animal. Perhaps I was not wrong after all. So, I kept my distance and minded my own business. They are not subtle, not in the least. They are not trying to hide from me, nor do I expect that they will try to hide from you. But I must emphasize that this does not mean that they are dull. They are of a far sharper mind than either you or I. Later that night, I spotted a skeleton strolling through my garden. They picked a flower, a red carnation, and chewed its head off. Much later, when I asked them about this incident, they explained that you had several such flowers. I did not think you would mind. I meant no offense. They were quite beautiful. As I said, in some ways, they are quite respectful, and others not so. And just like that, they were gone, blinked out of existence. I thought to myself, surely I am mad, if only. Next night, as I ate my supper, buttery mashed potatoes, caramelized carrots, and roasted mutton so tender it fell off the bone, all down with a cup of carbonate Sauvignon, but no dessert. As I mentioned before, the cabin was quite humble. They sat themselves next to me. One moment, an empty chair, the next occupied. The naked, rotting corpse asked if it may have dinner with me, and I agreed. I should have screamed. I should have ran. They were so charming. It was intoxicating. All the airs of gentry put into display. I don't remember exactly what they said, but I remember how they made me feel. In a word, special. They ate their dinner, bones and all. They did so most eloquently. Back straight, elbows off, each move with a utensil so smooth and refined, it seemed almost like a dance. All while they introduced themselves in between bites. They are a traveler. They are looking for a place to rest. They love conversation. They hope to stay with me, if it is not inconvenient. They are in search of beauty. They love my garden. Then they asked about me, and I told them what I will tell you now. I'm retired. I used to be a teacher. I do not have family anymore. I'm also in search of beauty. I plan to die here. They smiled at that, flesh hanging loosely from bleeding lips. I remember quite clearly them saying, "It is a wonderful choice for such an important moment." Then they told me of an ancient mausoleum, now long destroyed. So tall was the structure that one could scarcely see the statues that adorned its roof. It looked across the Mediterranean, clear blue waters lapping at its feet. It was built for a great king now long forgotten. They said it could not compare with the beauty of these log walls. When the grandfather clock rang, marking the hour, they bid farewell and exited via the front door. Their worm-infested legs did not look as though they had enough muscle to support them, but they did not stumble, nor did they even wobble. I saw them walk into the trees, graceful as ever. It was only as I slept that night that the shock of what had happened dawned on me. I awoke, clammy flesh sticking to my shirt as I bolted upright. I explored around my house, clearing each room with a kitchen knife in one hand. Once satisfied that I was alone, I looked out every window of my cabin, nothing but moonlit forest and creeping mist. Could it have been a dream? It had not been, for I found 2 dirty plates in my sink. I did not sleep that night. I spent it hiding in my closet, and I fell close to my chest. When morning came, I found the courage to emerge. I spent the day barricading the cabin as best I could. Tables sawn apart to make planks to secure the windows. Closet propped against the front door, antique cabinet blocking the back one. I could not leave. I had planned to die here in peace and solitude. No car, no phone, no computer. Merely a grocer who came out once a month to deliver a prearranged order. Nearest town was 6 miles away. Nearest neighbor, 2. Were I younger, it would not have been a challenge, but I feared I could not cover such a distance before nightfall. As you probably imagined, the preparations were for naught. Later that evening, they appeared again, sat in my now tableless dining room. This time their top half was flayed, the skin hanging loose around their waist. This provided only a modicum of decency for the naked cadaver. They looked around, confused. I explained that the barricades were to keep them out. They apologized, got up, and began to make their way out, when I stopped them. I asked if they would not rather stay for a cup of tea. They agreed on one condition: that they help put my cabin back to its previous state. So we spent the night laughing and joking about schizophrenic paranoids while we repaired my humble home. They even put the table back together. I do not remember how. Sometimes they could just make things happen. They liked my Earl Grey. I remember that part quite clearly, however. It is so surreal to write it all down now. All the signs I ignored because I wanted to believe that the monster before me was something better than what I could see with my own eyes. Even now, I feel disturbingly calm knowing that my death has been appointed to an hour not far. Is this their doing also? If so, I thank them, for I would not be able to hold a pin straight otherwise. As was the case before, they departed without a fuss once it grew late enough. Happy as you please, they walked into the mist. Again, I woke up in a cold sweat. Yet now I was a little less frightened than the night previous. This repeated night after night, week after week, year after year, until today. Less than 6 months later, I no longer hid in the closet waiting for morning to come. A year went by, and I no longer awoke in terror. 5, and I found myself missing their company in the daytime. Each night they came in the form of a different cadaver, unique in its morbidity. He spoke of poetry, literature, and film, lines that made me cry, passages that struck their heartstrings. They made me see the works I loved in a new light, brought life back to books which I had read cover to cover countless times. I cannot express how wonderful our conversations were. They introduced me to so many beautiful things I had never heard of before, like the symphonies of Fletcher and Di Pasca and Farkas. There were paintings of Sebastianini and Haven and Knapp too. I remember them all so fondly. They told me of how these pieces had been shunned in their time, of how they were forgotten by everyone but they. They collected beauty, forgotten or not, appreciated or not. To show me these works, they would slice open their stomachs and pull out whichever piece they wished to share with me from that night from within their black guts. These would trail behind them for the rest of the night. Sometimes it would be a painting, sometimes a vinyl disc. Once it was a crown. I know it sounds absurd, but I cannot deny what I saw. Once I asked them where they went when the morning came. They bluntly stated that they had chased the moon. always and forever, and they did not ever want to see the light of day. They always made sure to travel ahead of the sun. The one and only time I saw them become angry at me during this time was when I suggested the beauty that a sunrise might possess. They disagreed, to put it lightly. Last year, I gathered the courage to ask them the question which I know you are now wondering. How can a corpse speak? How can a corpse walk? This I remember quite clearly, for it scared me, though perhaps not as much as it truly should have. I'm sorry if my figure is less than refined. Every night I try to improve, but I lack the materials. I asked them if I could supply the requisite materials. Yes, but I hesitate to ask you, as you're a dear companion, and I have lost many friends over this issue. They paused for a time. I too remained quiet. Eventually they spoke again. I've never felt as close to a soul as I have with you. No other has tolerated my company longer than you. Perhaps one can hope that you will be more understanding of what I would ask you. They turned to look at me, their falling body making squishing putrid noises. I looked into an empty socket, and then into one cloudy eye which remained to them. It had maggots crawling inside of it. I could tell from the way it vibrated. I felt love in that gaze. I told them to ask. I need living flesh, your flesh. I've tried to replicate this form as a painter replicates a landscape, but all my subjects have been what you see before you. I asked them how they replicate the form. They bid me to join them. They took my hand. They were just frigid, cold, and led me outside. I'm not sure how in my old age I managed to walk with them to a cemetery. As far as I know, there was not one for miles. There, they stood on top of a grave, one lonely bolt sitting eye reflecting the moonlight. They dug out the coffin, bare-handed with speed and with grace. 6 feet of soil piled beside them. They ripped the wooden box open and waved for me to come closer. Inside was a nearly fresh body. Barely any worms had found it. She was wearing her Sunday best, as we all might when our day comes. They got down on their hands and knees and began to devour. They did not spare the bones. They started with the feet, biting off each toe individually. The legs they also ate, one at a time. Afterwards, they started on the fingers and hands, then arms. The torso came next, and this took the longest as they savored each organ one at a time. Last came the head, eyes first, then tongue. Nose and ears followed. All was eaten until only the brain remained. This they ate with much glee. The best for last, they said. All that was left were the clothes. They proceeded to put the coffin back together, and the earth too. When all was done, they walked me back to my cabin. I looked back as we left and saw that the sight looked as though nothing at all had transpired. When we returned, they sat me down and prepared a cup of green tea. They asked if I would give them what they needed. The maggots had since burst out of the eye and were now spilling out, some into my tea. Yes. It is an agreement then. We shook hands. The tea was good, maggots or not. Next night they came, asked if I was ready. I said no. They grew angry, but left regardless. The same the night after, and the one after that. This has been my life for the last year. As of a couple months ago, they would just stand outside my cabin, staring into my eyes. A few nights ago, they appeared inside my home. First time in nearly 3 months. They said, "You made a promise. Those of my kind do not take those lightly. Your body is starting to fail. You are dying soon. But trust that before that happens, I will have my due. 3 nights. Farewell." That was 2 nights ago, and the sun is beginning to set. I beg of you, do not repeat my errors. I was weak and lonely. Do not trust them. Do not let them into your home. Do not let them into your heart. I am sorry it will be harder for you than it was for me, for soon they will have a living subject, and when they introduce themselves, it will not be as a corpse. And that's the story. They take him to the cemetery, and he eats a fresh body. I guess, I mean, I think this is supposed to be, like, maybe the, like, death, like the Grim Reaper, maybe? The Grim Reaper kind of creature. Man, that was good. That was very, very good. Again, that was from Benjamin4463 from r/Tales from the Creeps. And thank you for listening.